Hi, this is Kevin Fontana, and if you want to learn to play country music, you can't do it without knowing this. So, if you want to play country music, this is one of the techniques you've got to learn. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the alternate bass pattern. When you hear country bands and bluegrass bands play, you'll always hear the bass player going. Well, if you're playing by yourself, you got to fill that in. If you want to play Johnny Cash, Hank Williams Sr., some of Junior's stuff, traditional country music, and pretty much any bluegrass, you're going to need to master this technique. When you first start learning chords like C, or A minor, or E minor, G, you learn that typically the lowest note in the chord shape is what's called the root note. So if I'm playing C, and I play this note, that's a C. The most basic pattern that you can do is what's called a bass and strum. And you may hear, that's one of the first things I teach students when they're learning these chords, is how to do that bass and strum. So when I'm playing just the bass and strum, everything's happening with the picking hand. Nothing's happening with my fretting hand, I'm just holding the chord. The alternate bass pattern adds some movement and feeling to the rhythmic movements. So what do I mean by alternate bass? Well, in that bass and strum, typically the root is the bass note. Whatever the lowest note of that chord typically is the root. So in the case of C, it's this note right here on the A string at the 3rd fret. What I want to do is every other bass note, I want to play a different note. And most of the time, what I'm actually playing is the 5th note of that chord. So if we took C and counted up, the open G string, it's the 5th note of the C scale. So what I'm going to do is, when I'm playing that, instead of playing this C, I'm going to go and grab this G right here on the low E string. So for that, I have to move my ring finger. I do the bass and strum, and then I take my ring finger and I move it over to the G note. So what's happening and what's going on is I'm getting that alternate bass pattern. Now every chord shape is going to have this same 5th of the root note. When I play the E chord, the B note right here is 5 steps up from the root of the E. So if I'm playing E minor, so what I do is substitute, and whether you're playing E major or E minor, that 5th note, or the interval of a 5th, is always going to be that B note. So I can do like that, or with E minor. And this is probably the easiest one to learn with because, again, your hand's not doing anything. It's not having to move from one note to the next. Everything's happening with the picking hand. So what I'm doing is hitting the E, then I strum the rest of the chord, then I hit the B and strum the rest of the chord again. So it sounds like this. When you're learning this technique or any new technique, it's important that you go slowly, because if you're making mistakes and you try to go too fast, those mistakes will kind of get compounded. It's better to play clean slowly and then work up your speed till you're at a higher speed. Because it's going to take time to get the coordination, especially in your picking hand if you haven't had a lot of experience with strumming. So if we look at the different chords, if I'm playing a C, the fifth note is G again, but I can grab the G right here, so I'm moving my pinky. Okay. If I'm playing a D chord or D minor, the fifth of that is going to be the next string down beside it, or that A note. The general rule of thumb in finding these intervals is if it's a fifth, it's going to look like this from the root. Basically, on the next string and 2 frets up. That's a fifth. That's a fifth. It also works the opposite way, because when you play, say, the fifth here or the fifth here, that note is the same as that note. They're both G's. So if I'm playing a C here, I can go up here to the fifth or down to the G down here. So depending on which chord you're playing, you're going to want to select one or the other. Typically, if it's a chord that's got an A string root, the alternate bass is going to be on the next string down. So in this case, I'm playing A, and then I'm playing the E string. If I'm playing something on the E, that's going to be on the next string and 2 frets up, going from the E to the B. If it's a G, it's a little bit different, because the fifth note there, the open D is your fifth. And so if I was playing G like this, using the E shape, I would catch the D there. But if I'm playing open, I'm going to catch the open D string there. Like that. And this kind of dovetails nicely into the Lester flat run. So if I'm playing G, and then I want to end, okay, so that's a staple of bluegrass and a lot of country as well. So all of these different techniques, if you want to do country, you've really kind of got to get the feel for this, at least traditional country. And you kind of have to know where things come from to know where you're going with them. So if you're going to play country, you kind of need to go back and learn some of the Johnny Cash, some of the Hank Williams Sr., some of the really old stuff that is where country music is rooted in, and you'll see a lot of players now draw on that for influences, whether they're doing straight up country or roots or Americana or many of the different genres that have sprung up as a result. You'll kind of need to know this movement. If you like this video, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified whenever I post new content. And until next time, keep practicing.